Hello, today is Friday, February 13th, 2015, and I'm your host, Sue Brown, and welcome to Info2Rail, your freight train to modern media. How y'all doing this freaky Friday the 13th? We got a great show for you today. Before we get started, I want to share a little bit about us at Info2Rail with you. Our mission statement here is although we hold the titles attached to paranormal activity, here at Info2Rail we report based on the facts. Our philosophy is that more often than not, the facts are more interesting and active than any illusion of truth could or would ever be. Here at Info2Rail, I would like to tell you a little bit about us and what we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing a lot of paranormal. I love paranormal, as I'm a researcher and a specialist in the paranormal field myself. We're going to be going to a lot of places that are haunted, or supposedly haunted, and we're going to bring you back the footage that we find. We're going to give you clips of the footage, but we're going to be honest with you if we found something or we didn't. But we're going to have lots of interviews with people that work there that have actually witnessed this phenomenon. And we're going to bring all that to you. And I hope you're with us one day every week for a new show. Well, welcome to our first show. And to kick things off, we are very fortunate and very excited to have author, lecturer, filmmaker, and researcher L.A. Marzulli with us. Very fortunate. L.A. is the author of such books as The Cosmic Chess Match and The Trail of the Nephilim. And in addition, L.A. has to his credit multiple films like the Watcher series, with his latest Watchers film being Watchers 8. If you haven't seen them, you really have to. They're amazing. L.A. is just, he's very, very intelligent man. Before we get to L.A. though, I'd like to touch down a little bit with you about this weather. This is craziness. I mean, I look out my window and there's so much snow and it just keeps coming. You can't even shovel yourself out before it's falling on our heads again. But in the news, with Winter Storm Marcus exiting New England, residents are left with one looming question. What are we going to do with all this snow? And what a good question that is. I mean, a 2+ week snow siege is smashing records in part of New England, including Boston, Worcester, Massachusetts, and Bangor, Maine. I mean, that is crazy. In Connecticut, parts of the state received 13 inches from the last snowstorm. 13 inches. And that's according to the National Weather Service. Wow. In Maine, just after midnight on Sunday, Bangor tied its all-time record snow depth with 53 inches on the ground. 53 crazy inches of snow. Wow. I remember as a kid, we used to have to shovel ourselves out the front door. We had so many feet of snow, it just kind of loomed right over the front door and we had to dig our way out. But lately, in the last, few years, I noticed in December, it is like 70 degrees. We still have 70-degree days in December, and we're not even seeing snowfall sometimes until January or February. This year's kind of crazy with all this extra snowfall. Well, we're going to go to a short break, and when we return, we will return with L.A. Marzulli on the other side. Stay with us and stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, we are back here at Info2Rail, and we have L.A. Marzulli with us today. Let's get to where we need to be here. Okay. Hello, L.A., and welcome to Info2Rail, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, the pleasure is all mine. Thanks for having me on.
What got us interested in having you on for our first show is our interest in the connection between alien and the Bible.
Sure.
That is so fascinating because you don't hear too many people talk about the connection between that, but it really fascinates me a lot as, you know, I'm very into the Bible and UFOs myself.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, basically, there are two camps, and the majority camp holds to the paradigm that the UFO phenomenon that we're looking at is all extraterrestrial from Zeta Reticuli or the Pleiades or wherever. Then there's the the paradigm that is held by people like Jacques Vallée, who insist that this is interdimensional, not extraterrestrial, that the phenomenon seems to be more in line with interdimensional type experiences that we read about than extraterrestrial. And of course, I hold to the latter position, which is that what we're looking at are interdimensional beings that are popping in and out. They do some horrific things to people, and I've spoken to numerous people who have been abducted, and it's no picnic. It is absolutely horrific what some of these people go through, and it scars them usually for the rest of their life. I've also been instrumental in getting people delivered. What I mean by that is having them break that experience so they're not abducted anymore. Now, I can't tell you that I've done 20 or 30 of them, but I've done a handful of them where people have emailed me and we've talked and we prayed, and they have given their lives over to Yeshua, who is a power greater than the so-called extraterrestrial presence. And that's the key here. We're not, some people look at this and, oh, well, LA is just religious. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is that there's been a cosmic war, which has been literally ongoing for millennia in an unseen dimension. And now it is beginning to spill out, and in the past has spilled out on this planet numerous times. And that's what really the Bible is recording all through the pages. And this war is between the fallen angelic host of heaven and the Most High God. So when we talk about the figure of Yeshua, or Jesus, as in the Greek, as most people know him, you have to immediately back away from cathedrals and candles and monks with funny haircuts and rosaries and robes and papal pontiff hats and processions and crucifixes and all this other nonsense, which is all man-made, with all due respect, but has nothing to do with what we're talking about. We're talking about real supernatural spiritual principles which have been woven throughout the Bible and are definitely applicable in the age that we're living in now. And that's the kind of stuff that we arm those people who want to get out of this, the bondage, for lack of a better word, that they are in. What I mean by bondage, they have no choice in the matter. They sometimes can tell when they're about to be abducted, but they can't stop it, no matter what they do. And so we give them the tools and make them realize that what they are looking at are supernatural entities which will yield to a power greater than they are. And that's what we do. And we've had, let me just to wrap this up, we had a very graphic experience, demonstration of this when we were taking out the implant of a person who had been abducted. And now, I used to be scoffed at years ago talking about implants. People don't scoff anymore because it's all on tape, it's all on video. And here it is, the whole process, and it's all done extremely scientifically. What do you do when you look at an x-ray and there's a metallic implant slightly below the knee, and then a CAT scan and there's the implant slightly below the knee, and we take a Gauss meter and that implant is registering 8.0 milligauss on a Gauss meter? How is that possible? Where Richard Shaw, the director and the co-producer of the Watchers series, his fully charged battery registered about 10.0 milligauss on the Gauss meter. Why is it that this object is giving off a radio frequency of about 330 gigahertz?
Right.
Perhaps in the microwave spectrum. Then we go take it into the operating theater, and we take an ultrasound machine, and sure enough, we find the implant within less than 2 minutes. There it is, and it pops up on the ultrasound monitor. 2 weeks later, we go in, and the thing has vanished. It's not there. It's not showing up on the Gauss meter of a stud finder. The lead surgeon, Dr. Matriciano, cannot find it. He spends an hour and 20 minutes going over a 3-inch by 8-inch strip of flesh below the man's knee where the implant was last seen, according to the x-rays and CAT scans that we've had. It's like it's gone. At this point, I get a tap on the shoulder. Now, I've been a born-again, spirit-filled Christian for 34 years, and I've learned to be still and know that he is God, and I've learned to heed his voice when I get the check. And I received the check, and it's nothing, it's like, woo, it's not woo-woo at all. It's just like, we walk him this stuff. That's how we're supposed to walk as believers.
Absolutely.
And I got a little tap on the shoulder. You know, you need to pray. You need to do it now. Break the power that's taken over this thing. And so I'm in a room filled with two doctors, Dr. Matriciano and Dr. Roger Lear, three camera crews, my friend and co-developer of the Watcher series, Richard Shaw, nurses and a staff of people. There's people outside watching this whole thing, the proceedings on an HD monitor. And I just say, look, guys, I'm going to pray. This might sound a little strange, but I'm going to pray and I'm going to do it now. So I didn't wait for permission. I just launched into a very short, simple prayer that went something like this. Father, if there are forces which are cloaking this device, I pray that you would break their power and do it soon. Well, guess what happened? Less than 2 minutes later, all of a sudden, the object, which had been cloaked for an hour and 20 minutes, suddenly appears on the ultrasound monitor. And everybody goes, whoa, what's that? Wow. And the way it appeared was not the way it normally would have under normal conditions. So 2 days later, I'm in SEAL Lab with Dr. Roger Lear, Steve Colbert, and Richard Shaw. We've got the implant out. We're looking at it under a scanning electron microscope. I take Dr. Lear, it's the last time I saw him, by the way, out in the hallway, and I say, Roger, I hope you realize what happened in that room on Saturday. And Roger's eyes got real big, and he said, LA, I now believe that there's a supernatural component to the UFO abduction phenomenon. And that was just incredible for him to admit that. And then he also added, I'm going to tell Whitley Strieber about it. So this is why when we say the biblical paradigm that embraces the UFO phenomenon, this is what we're talking about. It's real supernatural stuff, but greater is he that is in us than he that is in the world.
Well, do you believe that these are indeed angelic? Do you believe that these are the fallen ones that they speak of in the Bible?
Absolutely. I believe that these entities are the fallen angelic hosts who, for whatever reason, are using this very cleverly constructed ruse with the ships and everything else to basically promulgate the idea that we were seeded by them thousands and thousands of years ago. This is what I call the coming great deception. This is the alien agenda. For lack of a better word. And when they show up, they're going to tell us that they created all life on this planet, that they manipulated early man and created the Homo sapien that we see today. They jump-started the world civilizations and world religious systems. Now, at this critical juncture in human evolution, they are back to usher us into a time of peace, prosperity, and knowledge. And oh, by the way, we've got a little DNA upgrade which you'll place below your skin, and that'll change your DNA to where it should be. You'll live to 300 to 500 years disease-free. How does that sound? Oh, and by the way, we've got free energy, which will give everyone on the planet. So this is what's coming. I warn against it incessantly. The exopolitic crowd and the disclosure crowd, we basically agree that the phenomena is real, burgeoning and not going away. We just differ as to who is behind the phenomenon.
Okay. What do you think their agenda is when they abduct a human and there's actual, I mean, they sexually probe them and such? And do you believe that they're mingling? Is that them mingling themselves with these human beings?
Absolutely. There's some ancient prophetic literature found in a book by this prophet guy called Daniel, written about 2,500 years ago. And Daniel says, there's a very enigmatic chapter there, and he says that their seed will mingle with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave to them. And that begs the question, who the heck is Daniel talking about? And we believe it's the fallen angelic host of heaven. Going back in the very first book of the Torah, or the book of Genesis in the Hebrew Christian Bible, it'll tell you that in Genesis 3, we see the beginnings of this whole seed war, where it says there are four people there in this scene. The Most High God, the fallen cherub, Satan, and Adam and Eve. Okay, that's who's there. And the Most High God is passing judgment. He says to the fallen cherub, Satan, he says, your seed will be an enmity with the seed of the woman. So right off in chapter 3, we begin to understand that there's going to be a seed war. Chuck Missler, who we interviewed in our Watcher series, states that the fallen cherub, I refer to him as the fallen one because fallen he is outnumbered 2 to 1. He's creating an army. There is a hybridization program. We've interviewed Dr. Jacobs for, I think, Watchers 7. And in that, Jacob states openly that he's alarmed by what he sees. He is in despair for the future. He realizes that the breeding program has taken whoever these entities are, they've taken great care in concealing it. They have manipulated it. They have spent an enormous amount of time and energy and resources in conducting it. And he believes now it's at its zenith, it's reached its conclusion, its fruition. And I agree with him. We just disagree as to who's behind it. I believe it's supernatural. He believes it's extraterrestrial. At some point, all this is going to become very clear what it is we're actually looking at here. There is a breeding program going on. There's no doubt about it, in my opinion. Ovum is taken from the females. Sperm is taken from the males. We have, and I wrote about this, and Stephen Colbert, the chief scientist that used to be under Dr. Roger Lear's covering before Lear passed away last year. But I had Stephen Colbert write a chapter in On the Trail of the Nephilim, Volume 2, because we came back from Peru with a few strands of reddish hair from a mummy, which is about 2,000 years old. The hair was taken from Senor Juan Navarro's Paracas History Museum, and we gave it to Stephen Colbert, who then examined it with Raman spectroscopy. And Raman spectroscopy gives us the molecular structure. Well, what we didn't know is that Stephen Colbert had from a person who had been abducted and who claimed to have sex with a female hybrid being. He had a white hair from this entity, and the hair was almost like platinum blonde, that type of very, very light. And so we conducted Raman spectroscopy tests with 4 hairs: a normal human hair sample, a dyed human hair, the hair from Peru, and the platinum blonde hair from this so-called hybrid being. Well, Stephen let me use the graph, and it's in the book. And unfortunately, this is radio, so people can't see what the graph looks like. So you'll have to imagine it. It's a typical graph, and the human hair comes in about midway up on the left-hand side, makes a gentle arc, and then dies down. The dyed human hair comes in slightly below where the normal human hair comes in, goes straight up and out the window, so to speak, out of the graph. This is where it gets interesting. The red hair from the Paracas mummy, which is 2,000 years old, and the platinum blonde hair from the hybrid being, the slope on the graph, they track almost exactly. Every little jot, every little tittle is almost the same. And when we saw this, we were completely taken aback by what we had seen. Look, it's not conclusive, but it's hardcore scientific evidence that there's something going on, and there seems to be parallels between what we see in antiquity and what we see in modernity. And by the way, the hair from this 2,000-year-old mummy came from a very large, elongated skull with only one parietal plate and lacking a sagittal suture. So all that means is that, again, we believe there is genetic manipulation. An outside agency is manipulating a genome. I can't put it any clearer or simpler than that. An outside agency is manipulating our genome and doing it for the end all we're not sure of yet. But when we look at the work of Dr. Jacobs, it seems to be, in his words, a colonization. And frankly, I would agree with him. When these guys show up, all bets are off. Life as we know it changes forever.
Absolutely. I have a question. These children that they call, the star children, or the children who have extra abilities and such, do you think that has something to do with these abductions? These children that they find have extra chromosomes and such?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer to that is yes. It'd be really interesting to do some DNA testing on some of these so-called star children to find out what's really going on there. Not enough studies been done about it. Something's going on here. There's no doubt about it. There are forces at work, and we read about some of this in prophetic literature found in the Bible, which is what's so fascinating about it. And that's why when we start examining the abduction phenomenon, or we hear a prophecy, a 2,000-year-old prophecy that it says it'll be like the days of Noah when Yeshua returns, I mean, that's very telling, and it points the student of prophetic literature back to, well, what the heck differentiates the days of Noah than any other time in history. And of course, in my opinion, is the presence of the fallen angelic beings. Interestingly enough, the Book of Enoch, a pseudepigraphical book found on the Dead Sea Scrolls, however, and quoted throughout the Tanakh, and widely read in the first century, talks about this in detail, talks about the watcher angels coming down and taking women as wives, which is just incredible, and going into them in the biblical sense, and the offspring are the Nephilim. And this is why I'm on the trail of a Nephilim, because we believe that the vestiges of their presence on the planet are everywhere. And that's what the books are about, On the Trail 1 and On the Trail 2. And that's why we're trying to get the DNA samples out of Peru to do further testing.
What is your input on the rapture? It's kind of a confusing subject to a lot of people, because some believe that, one day the certain chosen people are just going to be taken up and just disappear, and some believe that that's not the case. What do you believe?
I've actually been there. I've been taken twice. When I say taken, not by extraterrestrials, but as Paul would say, who lived 2,000 years ago or thereabouts, in the body or out of the body, I know not. I was taken twice. The last time was about 8 years ago, and I was in there for 3 seconds in what I would call the rapture scene. There was a great throng of people. As far as the eye could see, we weren't packed together like sardines. There was space between us, 10, 15 feet in some cases. We were all looking in the same direction. That's second one. Second two, there's a holy reverential silence that permeates the scene and the crowd. No one is talking. No one is saying a word. We all know exactly where we are and exactly what's happened. Second three, and you can't make this stuff up, is I realized to my absolute astonishment that my sin nature is gone and I am free of it, which was just astounding. At that point, after 3 seconds, I found myself back standing in front of the shower, and I fell to my knees and I wept, because it was just a very extremely profound revelation, for lack of a better word. Paul the Apostle tells us, behold, I show you a mystery, we shall not all die. But I'm paraphrasing here, but some of us at the sound of the last trump will be translated. The dead in Christ will rise first, the dead in the Anointed One, the dead in the Messiah, those who believe in the Messiah will rise first. And those of us who are left here who believe in Messiah will then rise in the Lord, in the air rather, rise in the air and meet the Lord in the air and be with him evermore. Now, that's bizarre. That's about as supernatural as you can possibly get. I can't think of a more supernatural event than that. Are you kidding me? We read this stuff, it's beyond science fiction, literally. I mean, that's just unbelievable when you think about it. Yet, that's what he talks about. And interestingly enough, I had a waking vision, but it was more than a vision. I was there. In the body or out of the body, I know not. It lasted 3 seconds. I was taken. See, time doesn't really exist. We're stuck in the space-time continuum, and time flows. But we know that if we could attain the speed of light, the closer we get to the speed of light, time takes on completely different properties. It begins to slow down.
Absolutely.
It begins to change. And so with that in mind, time is an illusion. And therefore, I was taken, in a place where time doesn't exist, into that heavenly scene where the rapture had already occurred. I mean, you could make a point that we're already at the end. We're already seated with Messiah in the heavenly realm. You can make a point. And from his perspective, we are. From our perspective, we aren't. We have to catch up, and eventually we will. But eventually, space-time as we know it won't be here anymore. Space-time as we know it will cease to exist. And that's bizarre to talk about. You see, we live in this natural world, and we think that the Darwinists would say everything is empirical. The scientists would say, I only believe in the empirical. I only believe in what I can see and touch and recreate in a lab and through the scientific method. But there are other factors at work here. I am a frank supernaturalist, and I believe that we live in a supernatural world, and that supernatural world is actually more real than the natural one.
Do you believe that spirits walk amongst us, people call them ghosts or, entities? Do you believe that we can see our loved ones that have passed after they've passed?
that gets into a whole kettle of fish, which I really don't want to get into because it's so controversial. But the short answer to that is yes. I think that there obviously there's a beyond after this thing, but a lot of times when people see their loved ones, if they're being impersonated by other entities, because those other entities can shapeshift, and depending on how the person is contacting. In other words, if you're trying to contact through necromancy, let's say a dead relative, first of all, we're told in the guidebook of the supernatural, i.e., the Bible, that that's forbidden. And the reason why it's forbidden, not because the Most High God is being nasty, no, it's forbidden because when you do that, you contact the entities from the second heaven. And those entities from the second heaven are, in fact, the fallen angelic host. And those guys are masters of deception. Jacques Vallée's book, Messengers of Deception. Why does he call it that? You know, out of all the titles he can choose, Jacques Vallée, you know, one of the pioneers of ufology, calls them messengers of deception. You know, his work really isn't referred to too much in ufology, among ufologists. They sort of step away from that because Jacques Vallée, again, is pointing to the interdimensional hypothesis rather than the extraterrestrial hypothesis.
Well, that's what I was wondering in that situation is when people think that they're seeing these entities or these ghosts, if it's actually the fallen ones deceiving them. That was my point of the question.
Yeah, that's the short answer to that is yes, that's what I think it is.
And, we live here, where I live in Canandaigua, but on the lake here we walk a lot. And the last summer, we spent a lot of time walking down through there, and we were noticing that, I mean, there had to be thousands of fish dead a day. And I mean thousands. We asked the one kid, and he said that cleans them up. He said that he was cleaning up 500 a day in that one spot before noon every day. Do you think that this is what's spoken of, and is this part of the birth pains that are spoken of in the Bible?
Absolutely. You know, we're told the signs to watch: wars and rumors of wars, check; famines, check; earthquakes in diverse places, check, 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 check; troublesome times, signs in the heavens, men faint from fear of what's coming upon the earth. Absolutely. Troublesome times, all this working together. Look at the volcanic activity happening on the planet. Look at what's going on in the Middle East, which is, by the way, the place to watch. And I write about that extensively on my blog, lamarzulli.wordpress.com. It's not going away. Israel has been regathered into the promised land after thousands of years of diaspora being basically out of the promised land. I mean, it's unbelievable what's going on. Jerusalem has become a burdensome stone, which is what prophecy tells us. That's all in the prophetic literature. That's, you know, wake up. That's what's going on right now. Look at ISIL. Look at the possible beginnings of the Psalm 83 war. Look at the fulfillment of Isaiah 17, which talks about Damascus being a ruinous heap. Damascus right now, there's certain sections of the city which are ruinous heaps. It's being destroyed brick by brick. Who would have ever imagined such a thing? So look, the earthquakes in diverse places, when that's written 2,000 years ago, and by the way, all this is that scripture I just quoted is from Yeshua. Jesus is telling us the signs to watch for. And he's sort of like tongue-in-cheek, earthquakes in diverse places. Wait a minute. What are you talking about? 2,000 years ago, there's no way to track earthquakes in diverse places. You can't do that 2,000 years ago because you can't do it. You don't have the technology to do it. Now my iPhone rings, or, you know, I get a ping anytime there's a 6.0 anywhere around the planet. We are wired together. So now we can keep track of earthquakes in diverse places. Incredible.
Well, I look around and I see the weather changes on the planet, and there's so many things, and I talk to people because I'm a very social person, and it just seems like so many people don't even realize what's going on. They don't even see these signs from the Bible. They just, you say something to them and they look at you like, oh, I never noticed that, or are you crazy? I mean, some people are noticing, and other people, I guess, just choose to close their eyes or something, but I mean, I never used to notice these things, but now it just seems every time you turn around, there's something new happening, and it's crazy.
Well, absolutely, and here's the deal with that. There's a term called cognitive dissonance. People, when faced with a situation or situations that they are unfamiliar with, people will take on this sort of a mental paradigm, which is cognitive dissonance. They can't relate. They basically shut down. They get the deer caught in the headlight, glaze look in the eye, or they just get very nervous and change the subject. They don't want to talk about it because they're ill prepared to talk about it. They have nothing in their paradigm which enables them to embrace this. And most Christians are never schooled in prophecy. So that's why when something hits something like this, they kind of shy away from it because, whoa, I didn't know this was in the Bible. And that's why I do what I do. That's why I write the books I write, do the radio interviews. That's why we make the Watcher series. And I have my own show, Acceleration Radio, and soon to be launched Acceleration TV. And that's why we do this, to try to warn people, wake up people as to what's really going on, that it's not business as usual, that something is happening on the planet which is unique. We are in a unique period of time, that the supernatural is manifesting in ways that I've never seen it. Things are ramping up. We're going to come to some sort of a climax at some point in time, and I think that's sooner than later. So there you go.
Well, I turn around also, and, I'm out and about in the world a lot, and I see people, and that's just who I am. I've always been able to see people, and I'm starting to see these changes in people. They're kind of robotic. They're not as they used to be. They're not. There just seems to be in a lot of people this change that they just don't seem to be what they used to be.
Well, I kind of hear what you're saying in that respect. We've lost many friends, many so-called friends along the way through what I do, the books I write, my research, because cognitive dissonance, they were not able to deal and to cope with the truth that was placed right in front of them. What do you do with the UFO phenomena? What do you do with the black-eyed kids? What do we do with the increase of earthquakes all over the planet? What do we do with the so-called global warming nonsense, which could be further than the truth? We're seeing bizarre weather patterns everywhere, which has nothing to do with global warming, in my opinion. Something is going on, and I believe the Guidebook of the Supernatural, i.e. the Bible, explains it best. These are, in my opinion, the last days, and I think all the signs are here. We are firing on all 8 cylinders, to use that analogy, and we're headed towards some sort of a climax, and I think the climax is sooner than later.
I lost my dad here in October, and I heard that...
I lost my dad in August. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, too. That's what I was going to say. I heard that you lost your dad as well. My dad was to cancer, and it was kind of quick. So I just wondered what you believe. So many people struggle with a lost one in a way that they just can't seem to get past it. I have a peace about it that's crazy, that I never thought I would feel this kind of peace at losing a parent. What do you think causes some people to have that peace and others to struggle so hard?
Well, I think it's a case-by-case situation. There's no blanket answer that would work. I think a person that has a real grasp of what Christianity really is, and a personal relationship with Jesus, Yeshua. That, by the way, Yeshua is his real name. Jesus is his name in the Greek.
Yep.
So that's why I refer to both. His real name is Yeshua. That's his Hebrew name. Remember, Jesus was Jewish.
Right.
So his name is Yeshua. But a people that have a real born-again experience with Yeshua understand that death is but a doorway to another dimension, which is far more real than this one. And that's how they're able to cope with the loss. There's a scripture, peace that passes understanding. And if you're out there and you have no idea what I'm talking about, then it's your loss, and you need to try to find out what it is I'm talking about. But that's what he promises, that there is peace that passes understanding, and the Prince of Peace, the real Prince of Peace, Yeshua, can give that to a person. The Holy Spirit, the Spirit of the living God, when we open ourselves to him, he comes in and begins to teach us in all things. And that's where that peace comes from. And that's incredible. And you can't buy that. You
Oh, I
can't buy
know.
that. You can't self-medicate yourself to forget your pain and everything else.
I know.
But
Boy,
when
do
we
I
turn
know.
that over to Yeshua, peace comes in.
I noticed that because I thought at first I thought I am going to struggle so bad when he finally passes, and how am I going to live without him and all this? And I asked God. I said, just please, just give me the peace that when he passes, I know that everything's okay. And it was incredible. It was like a miracle thing. It just the peace was there, and it was okay. Everything is okay.
Yeah, well, actually, my dad had Alzheimer's, and he a long, slow decline for about 4 or 5 years. And at the very end, I was back there, and I was getting ready to leave on a plane. This was on a Friday night and Thursday night, and I went over to my dad and laid hands on him and just talked to him and said, Dad, it's okay for you to go home. You've held on as long as you can. Less than 24 hours, he passed away, and we got the call very early Saturday morning, and I was back on a plane, and the rest is history. I cried at the funeral. I choked up when I did the eulogy at the very end. But I was prepared for it, and it was a long, slow decline, and he's in a better place. And at the end, he was completely, non-responsive, and would just stare out blankly into space. He had no life. So it was merciful that the Lord took him. But what a hideous disease. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. It's just a horrible disease.
I know, did that, and it just seems like everybody is getting cancer all at once. My dad's the youngest of 9, and there was absolutely no problems. My grandfather was 97 when he passed, and that was from breaking his hip. And all his sisters and brothers are alive now still, except for just 3 of them. And it's crazy. Cancer just seems to be touching down on everybody at once. And when he went,
That stuff's pretty weird.
he was diagnosed in February with pancreatic cancer, and he actually hit remission. They told him they weren't finding any more cancer in his cells, and that they were just going to do radiation to clean it up, and they over-radiated him and burned the stomach lining out of him, so that's what killed him. But
Yeah, that's the problem with medicine. I just look. The cancer industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and they don't know what they're doing. I mean, they don't really understand how to kill it, and that's why they can make these huge drug cocktails. But at what price do you pay?
right.
So I have no answer to it. It's just nasty stuff.
I was reading on your blogs because I read all of your stuff. It's very fascinating to me.
Thank you.
You opened my eyes to so much of how to look at things so much differently now. I mean, I never, saw ufology or aliens in the way I do now, connected to the Bible, and it's fascinating. When I read your blogs, I noticed that a lot of people asked, when they're asked if they could ask you any question in the world, they would ask you what your belief is on the subject of the Bigfoot. So I wondered, what is your subject on Bigfoot? Do you believe that they exist at all?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I've spoken to Ron Moorhead, who's got a fascinating book called Sierra Sounds. He encountered these creatures for years and interacted with them and actually recorded their cries, sounds, and language and had it tested at a major university. Fascinating book, fascinating sounds. They have a cone head. They have an elongated skull. They're huge. He went on the record in Watchers 6, I believe, or no, Watchers 7. Yeah. It was either 6 or 7, doesn't matter. Anyway, he went on the record and told us this wonderful story. He was up at this in the high Sierras in this very secret location, which he would go to, which is where these creatures interacted with him. He's walking on this game trail.
What do you think?
And in front of him is a 28-inch footprint.
What do you
28-inch footprint.
What do you think they are? What do you think they are?
I'm sorry, what?
What do you think they are? I mean, where do you think they come from, and what do you think they really are?
Well, I honestly think that they're part of a Nephilim, and so does Ron Moorhead. That's why he was down with us, and we've had numerous discussions on this. He believes that these are not skunk apes. They are interdimensional, which is why we don't see the carcasses, which is why they're incredibly elusive. They also have supernatural power. And I've talked to people who have been close to them and been shut down by them. They weren't able to move. I mean, this stuff is really spooky stuff. Read, what is it, the 9/11 books by David Paulides, talking about his encounter or the people missing, 9/11 missing, and these people just go missing in these rural areas, and oftentimes their children, they're found, they have scratches like they've been in brambles, their shoes are gone, and they usually show up 2 or 3 days later, even sometimes longer, where the search parties have already gone over that area numerous times. Other people are never found again without a trace. And in my opinion, this all goes into interdimensional entities which come in and come out, and this is all part of the breeding program, in my opinion. Ron Moorhead believes that these are Nephilim. He found, as I was saying earlier, a set of prints 28 inches from heel to toe, and the stride was about 15 feet. And there were a series of these prints, and then they just vanished.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah, it is fascinating.
Well, I mean, it's such. I mean, everybody seems to be looking for these Bigfoot. And you see it all over TV, and they're all looking. Nobody can see
the show should be called Not Finding Bigfoot.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
It's the same show every week.
Yep.
They never find anything. It's just a joke. I mean, it's just an absolute, they'll hear a knock in the woods, and, they cut to something. Oh my God, what's that? And they come back after the commercial and there's nothing. I stopped watching the show because they never find anything. It should be called Not Finding Bigfoot because they never find them.
What how do you believe that these aliens or the fallen ones, how do you think that they choose their people? I mean, for some of us who have never had any experiences with aliens or UFOs or anything, I mean, what sets certain people apart from other people who actually do get visited?
I have no idea. None. Absolutely none. I have no idea how it works and what they choose and what they don't choose. They're definitely after something. There's no doubt about it. Certain families seem to be abducted generationally. They're after something. They're after genetic material, a certain type of genetic material, and only they know what it is.
Do you think?
But there is a breeding program, and it ties back into that.
Do you think intelligence has a lot to do with it? Do you think that they look for a certain type of intelligence in certain people, and maybe a certain gift that another has?
I don't know. I honestly can't speak to it because it makes no sense.
That's what I wondered, because I had always, we go outside and we're always looking up. And I ask these questions, why do we never see anything and other people do? So that's fascinating to me. Can you tell us a little bit about your Watcher series a little bit? I actually thought it was fascinating.
Well, I really appreciate that. The Watcher series, there's 8 installments in them. We talk about everything from UFOs. In fact, we won the People's Choice Award at the 2014 EBE Film Festival. We also won the EBE Best Film, and we also entered Watchers 8 in this year's film festival. And my partner Richard Shaw, my business partner Richard Shaw, will be driving to Phoenix to hopefully receive an award this year. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I mean, we do everything from the Shroud of Turin to Black Eyed Kids, David Weberly, the elongated skulls that we found in Paracas, Peru, the megalithic structures we saw in Paracas, Peru. We're all over the map, and we're working on Watchers 9. This weekend we'll be flying to Oklahoma City to do some television shows there, and Richard Shaw and I will be kind of storyboarding Watchers 9 and getting it up on the map.
That is great. I'm looking forward to that. Definitely looking forward to it. Well, when you uncover some new materials or have a new project up, hopefully you'll come back on our show and share more with us.
Well, I would love to. We talked about ufology today. We never really got into On the Trail of a Nephilim 2. Let's reschedule, and I'll send you some JPEGs so you can put them up on your site to whet people's appetite. What's in that book is astounding.
That would absolutely be great. I just
Count
want
on
to
it.
I want to thank you so much for being on here. This is our first show, and this is a dream that I've had my whole life, and it's finally happening. And I am just very honored to have you as a first guest here, and I just want to thank you so much for taking time to be here with us.
Well, thank you so much. It's an honor for me to be chosen for your first episode, and let's do it again. Shoot me an email. I'll send you with an address, and I'll send you a free copy of On the Trail 2, so you can check it out and see what we're talking about. Then we can send you some JPEGs to put up on the site, and that way we can whet people's appetite.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it.
Great.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye. What a phenomenal interview that was. It was absolutely great. We're going to take a break right now, and when we come back, we're going to touch down a little bit on the interview we just had with L.A. Marzulli, and then we're going to close our show. So don't go anywhere. Stay here. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, guys, we're back. I want to thank everybody for being with us on our first show for Info2Rail, and I want to especially thank L.A. Marzulli yet again for being with us. Before I actually started listening to L.A. Marzulli's lectures and interviews and reading some of his material and such, I never quite had that connection with the Bible and this ufology and aliens. Now that I have, it actually makes so much sense to me, and I can actually see where he's coming from with the connection of the fallen ones and aliens. So to me, that opened my horizon huge. I myself am very open-minded, and I love to learn. And this has opened a whole new spectrum for me. It's opened a whole new realm of possibilities. So the Bigfoot thing was something that I was kind of excited to touch down with LA about. I always wondered about him, and I always believed in him, but I never even thought about a connection between the Bigfoot and the Bible at all. You know, to me, that is a brand new thing to research on and to look at it in a totally different way. And I just want to let you guys know that I have a lot of fun doing this stuff, and we're going to bring a lot more of this kind of stuff to you from Info2Rail. It's a lot of fun, and it's very educational as well. We plan to do a lot of things, as I said earlier on this show, but I would be very, very, very honored to have LA back again with us to touch down on his books, and especially that he's on the trail of a Nephilim, and I think that is so interesting, and I can't wait to have him back on the show and talk about his book and get to share that experience, more experience with LA yet again. Well, you guys, this is the end of our show, and I would again like to thank you for being with us. I would like to invite you guys back every week for a new show, new topics, new guests, new people. We're going to have a lot of fun, and I hope that you guys are with us to have fun with us. God bless you and keep you, and may his face shine upon you in these uncertain times. Until next time, we'll see you then.